This is Vice Mayor Keon's item about the civil fine and my item too. And then there's a second item, resolution urging the Senate and House to adopt Senate Bill 196 and 219, banning assault weapons and large capacity magazines. Before I turn over the microphone to Vice Mayor Keon, I wanted to say something. Up to 2008, we had an ordinance that banned gun sales in Coral Gables except in the industrial district. Except in the industrial district, the gun sales were banned, gun sales. And after 2008, under former Mayor Zlesnik, this restriction was removed and gun sales of any kind were classified as retail. One option we have is to rescind the liberalization of this, of the prior ordinance, and reverting it to the prior language, which is that they will only be allowed in the industrial area. This is a very, very sensitive issue for me. I thought of the students that died. I thought of all over the United States, but in Florida in particular. And I lost a son about 17 months ago. And I think of those parents, the fathers and mothers that lost children due to this senseless attack on the schools. Senseless attack with a firearm that made it possible to kill 14, 15 kids at the same time, and adults. It is a very, very sensitive issue for me, very sensitive, and I feel very strongly about it. And I'm sorry, Vice Mayor, but I wanted to say this as an introduction, and the floor is yours, and then I'd like to address it again.
Yes, interestingly enough, and I've talked with Miriam about it since, is 2 or 3 weeks ago, I had received some, piece from the League of Women Voters asking for support for the Senate Bill 196 and House Bill 219. And so it sat with Miriam because we had been doing some other resolutions for support of particular legislation before the legislature now during this session. So I went to Miriam and said, I'd like to do something in support of these two bills. Can we do a reso that we can bring to the next commission meeting? And she said, sure. So she was putting it together. And then it was after that there was a shooting in Parkland. So it was, she had already written it by the time that shooting occurred. So it is not just in response to that. I mean, it was really done because I believe it is the right thing to do. I attached the House Bill the Senate Bill to the item so you can read it. And it really is simply to ban assault weapons and to ban the implements and apparatus that you attach to weapons to make them become semi-automatic or automatic weapons. It doesn't address the issue. I mean, I'm not raising any issue related to a handgun that someone wants to use for their own personal defense. It certainly doesn't relate to a rifle that someone would use to hunt with or anything else. These are weapons of war. I spoke at length to Frank Hernandez about it, and I'd like him to, for the record, I would like him to come up, please, and talk about these particular weapons and the danger that they present to society. That these weapons, the bullets, the velocity of these bullets that used in these weapons can penetrate a police officer's vest. So even if we have police officers in the schools or out and around, they're not safe. They're not safe either. And even if they wear that particular plate or whatever that goes, over their their lungs and their heart as vital organs, just the blunt trauma to that plate as a result of those bullets and weapons can cause deadly injury to them. There is no good reason for anyone to own, outside of the military or the police, to use these weapons. And if you can even talk about the history of these weapons, that they were used during the Vietnam War, and what were they used for? And why they don't belong in streets.
56 minutes ago, for a second day, the Florida Legislative Committee rejected a ban on assault weapons in the state that has had more mass shootings than any other. The vote followed emotional pleas from part-time parent who is a friend of Gina Montalva, a 14-year-old girl who was one of the 17 victims.
Right.
The House Appropriations Committee on Tuesday rejected a proposal.
Right. This is
to
both in the
outlaw
heart.
sale and possession of 200 types of semi-automatic rifles.
Okay, this is on the House side. All we have hopefully left is the Senate bill. And I want to just, I'd like to also tell you that I had asked for Ron Book's information to get in touch with him as our lobbying team to see where they were on it. And I texted him and asked him to please call me. And after my text, after waiting a day and a half and not having a response from my text, I called his cell phone. He answered to tell me he was in the store purchasing something. He would call me back in 5 minutes. I have to tell you, this is the longest 5 minutes of my life because I have yet to still hear from him. So I've still not gotten a call back. So, and I have to tell you, I'm not happy about it, because all I asked for was what was happening in Tallahassee, what was going on, what was the level of support, and I wanted that information. So I wish I was better prepared with that information than I am. I had spoken to somebody else in Tallahassee about it who gave me additional information, but it's not the lobbying team that we paid for.
Understand.
Right.
That I will, the deputy clerk is texting the other partner of that. There's no excuse for that, Commissioner. I have no excuse for it.
I don't think so either.
Okay,
But-
Mr.
But
Fernandez,
going forward,
would you
Director
like to-
Fernandez, please.
The commissioner asked me about these weapons. These are AR-15, which are the civilian version of a military weapon. The military version is an M16 rifle, and its generation comes from obviously from war. And it's started from Vietnam. They fire a round. It's a rifle round, so they do penetrate vests unless you have a ceramic vest, a ceramic plate. But even with the ceramic plate, when it hits that plate, it could cause blunt trauma, as the commissioner said. Can cause some major, significant, possibly deadly injuries, even if it doesn't penetrate. These weapons are mainly seen in the theater of war, although in our country, the Second Amendment is a very, very powerful amendment. And so these weapons have come to the market at a high volume rate, and they're readily available out in the street today. They do cause havoc in the community. It is hard to say if they're used for hunting, because someone like I said, they use a high-capacity weapon, or I should say a high-capacity magazine to hunt. It's a difficult question to articulate a reason for that. Nonetheless, these weapons do pose a significant threat, I believe, to our local communities if in the hands of the wrong person. I think that's the operative word, if in the hands of the wrong person. They are high caliber. They go through walls. They can go through a CBS block. So that's the essence of these rounds and these rifles.
This weapon doesn't just shoot you. It tears you apart. It rips holes in you. It destroys your organs. It blows up your bones. If it hits a bone, it explodes. This is not just a single piercing shot. Can you talk about your role on the ICPA, the International?
Yes, I am currently the chairman of the ICP Firearms Committee.
Could you tell us what that stands for?
That's the International Association of Chiefs of Police. So they have committees, and one committee is a Firearms Committee. It encompasses a significant number of members from around the country. Our goal is to reduce violent crimes in the hands of, at the foot of firearms. So most recently, we've passed 5 resolutions, bump stock being one of them from Los Angeles. These are the Reciprocity Act out of Virginia is another resolution that we've passed in the ICP committee. And I provided the commission with the other 5 resolutions that we have, and also the city
I think
attorney
they're on your-
for consideration.
You have a packet with all the resolutions
Yeah.
before you.
And yours was in opposition to the reciprocity.
That's correct. There's an
legislation,
opposition to it. That's correct. And so the purpose of this is to make sure that these guns are not in the hands of the wrong person. So our goal is to make sure that we push resolutions through the 27,000 members around the country to make sure that we're trying to do everything we can through the association to foster safer gun ownership.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I would like us to strongly support this bill, although it has not been heard in the Senate. I want it brought up in the Senate. I would like it debated in the Senate. I would like it passed in the Senate. And I'd like to come back, if you would look at the other 5 proposals that the International Association of Police Chiefs have put together. I would ask Miriam to write a resolution that we will send to our federal elected officials and ask that they would also join us in our strongly urging them to deal with these weapons that serve no good purpose. They said, you can't send your children to school unless your children are vaccinated, because we knew the danger of the viruses between polio and measles and all of the things that we vaccinate against now. And no matter how much you washed your hands, no matter how much a face mask you wore, you were not going to rid this country of these viruses or these diseases that pose such a terrible threat. So you know what? We passed laws that didn't allow you to send your children to school unless you do it. We cannot allow instruments, whether they are viruses or rifles or guns, to exist in the hands of ordinary people that can create the damage that they create. There is no good reason for it. And that is not, Commissioner Mena can tell you that as an attorney, both he and all 3 of you can tell us as an attorney, because something is an amendment to the Constitution doesn't mean that it is written in stone, and it is up to the interpretation. And I'd like to ask you to comment on that.
No, let me, go ahead. Let me say my word, and then, the commissioner
Yeah.
will get a chance to speak, if you don't mind. I congratulate the International Association of Chief of Police and these 5 resolutions, which are very much on point, but they are rogatory. I mean, they're rogatory and they're fine, and they resolve that the opposes congressional bills and urges this or that. These are rogatory and they're fine. They're fine as far as they go, and our support of the legislation in the Senate, I guess, because it just failed in the House. 18 Republicans voted against, and 10 Democrats and 1 Republican voted for adopting legislation banning assault weapons and large capacity magazines. That is fine as far as it goes, but in the city of Coral Gables, I remember some years ago we banned or regulated newsstands. And it went up to the Supreme Court, regulated the color, the size, the whatever, it went up to the Supreme Court. The defense was the First Amendment, and it was against freedom of the press and whatever, and we prevailed because our zoning code, our standards of beauty prevailed over what the Miami Herald at that time was saying in opposition to our motion. I would like for us to urge, and I will make a motion and pass the gavel to you, saying, urging legislation to ban assault weapons and large capacity magazines in the city of Coral Gables. And if there is a $5,000 fine against an elected local government official that proposes this, I'll be very willing to pay it, because I want to protect our children. I think that if we prevail on our taste in newsstand racks, if we passed this, if we had this requirement, zoning for gun sales, restricting them to a certain part of the city prior to 2008, which was removed under former Mayor Slesnik, why can't we ban this very noxious, very, very horrible assault weapons, AR-15s, M16s, AK-47s, semi-automatic firearms capable of accepting detachable magazines, and it's horrible, and I would like, and I'll pass this to you, to make a motion banning the use or sales of these weapons of mass destruction in the city of Coral Gables.
Before we begin discussion, I need to address the commission.
Yeah.
What?
If you'd like to speak first, Commissioner, please
Yes,
go ahead.
but why don't we hear from the commission?
Well, we're talking, I think, there's
They are
two
two different
agenda
things.
items, and I just want to,
No, but I've just made a motion.
right.
Let's address that.
Oh,
We haven't moved H4 yet. We can table H4 for the moment and talk about H3. There's a motion on the floor.
Listen, I'm strongly in favor of gun control in this country, in this state. I agree with everything you've just said. And I fully support the request to urge the Senate and the House to pass legislation on this front. On this issue, while I would love to be able to do this, we have a real issue because it's illegal under Florida law. We have a statute that directly says we cannot do this. And I suspect she was about to speak that's about what the city attorney is about to tell us. And let me just say, I would love nothing more than to challenge the constitutionality of this because I think it's an overreaching preemption. But that's been done too, is my understanding. Other municipalities have already done this, have already challenged this, have gone to the court system, and have lost. So, I think it happened in, I've sent
City
you
of
a few articles in the city of Tallahassee. So I'm just not sure what we're really, it's a symbolic gesture in some respects, but we know what's going to happen here. We're going to violate Florida statute. We're going to have to go into the courts. We're all going to be potentially personally liable. And again, this has already happened, and it didn't work. And so I just want to be careful about how we approach this. I think we need to do everything we can within the law to effectuate change here. We all agree with that. Well, I shouldn't speak for anybody, but I certainly feel that way. But I'm a little bit concerned about this particular approach, Mayor. I applaud where it's coming from. I think I 100% agree with you on the substance of the issue, but I do have some concerns about, what's the statute, Miriam,
790.33.
790.
Yeah, so I just think we need to have a discussion about how we approach this.
I think I agree with you that the statute says what it says, 790, but this is a matter of principle. This is a matter of principle, and this is a matter of protecting our children in the state of Florida. And if the legislature, as of an hour ago, rejected regulation of these firearms, somebody has to take a stand. And I think that the city of Coral Gables is progressive enough and valiant enough and courageous enough that we have to take a stand regardless of what the legislature doesn't do. If they don't forbid the sale of rat poison in pharmacies in aspirin bottles, we should do that. This is the equivalent of that. Florida has lost more kids than any other state because of these assault weapons. And I think I want to take a stand.
But to me, I understand what you're saying. I really genuinely do, and I really respect the approach you're taking on this. But to me, at least, it's not about courage and valor. Because the reality is, it's not going to actually ban the sale of guns in Coral Gables because we're going to get sued. It's going to go to court. This has already happened, and we're going to lose. And I'm not saying that. I'm not trying to predict that. It's only because this is already played out. And so, while I think we should be courageous and show valor and fight this by any means which we can, I do have some concerns about doing something that A, is not going to actually result in any change, and B, is illegal. That's the predicament of this particular approach to it. To be clear, I'm absolutely in favor of supporting the House and Senate bill, and whatever else we can do. I even wanted to talk about some of the supporting the school board to pursue some of the remedies which I provided to you all. But that's my issue. Is it's not going to actually result in the banning of sales in Coral Gables, even if we wanted to.
I think we should.
And that's no fault of our own. That's just the position that the Florida legislature has
I would
put
like
us
to
in.
take a stand, and I'd like to publicize this issue, and maybe
Commissioner
it will
Quesada?
result in some good in the legislature. Frank,
Quesada?
Commissioner Casala, you want to say something?
I agree 100% with both of you, with the mayor and Commissioner Mena. It's funny, what I'm thinking about now is, I guess I should have anticipated that this motion was coming today. I should have thought about this more. And I'm thinking now, Mr. Mayor, your point for doing this, you know, I'm 100% in agreement with you. I really am. And the question becomes, other cities have done it, they've tried fighting, and they've lost, which I wasn't aware of until right now, until Commissioner Mena said that. I wasn't aware of that. So the question becomes, okay, if I second the motion, we vote for it, it happens, okay, the lawsuit will come. But is it going to draw more attention? Will it draw more attention to, I guess, the ridiculous stances that have been occurring in Tallahassee in this regard to garner enough attention to hopefully change the narrative moving forward? Right? That's your goal behind this.
That is the point, and I have the statute here, and it's underlined in yellow, and, but the point is, somebody has to do something to change this. And I'm
Before a vote is
trivializing the
taken,
issue,
I
but
need to
remember
address the
Rosa
commission,
Parks,
please.
Going and sitting in the front of the bus?
Yeah, no, you're right.
This is, well, we have to do something. Somebody has to stand up,
And I think lots of people are standing up, you know.
and it hasn't done any good.
No, listen, I agree with you. But again, there's a lot of things we can do to call attention to this issue short of breaking the law. I think that's where I'm coming at it from. Maybe, you know, Miriam.
Civil disobedience.
Mayor, members of the commission, I, on a personal level, not speaking as city attorney for the city of Coral Gables, but on a personal level, would love nothing more than to see assault rifles banned. I don't think that there's a place for them in our civilized society.
However,
That being said, I have an oath as an attorney, and I have an oath as the attorney for the city of Coral Gables to uphold the law. 790-033 is an express preemption that has significant consequences. Not only is there a $5,000 fine, not only may that fine not be paid for by the municipality, but the municipality may not use public funds in defending that injunction when it comes, which is what the state has said, and it can result in the termination of employment for any employee in the city of Coral Gables that enforces such ordinance, and it can result in the removal from office of any of you by the governor for violating the preemption. It is a significant preemption. I have never seen anything like it. I think that we could move forward with having our office, if that is what the commission would like to do, research what the options are to bring an action stating that the lawsuit is that the preemption is unconstitutional. However, I cannot sign an ordinance passed by this commission that violates this state statute, as I believe it would be an illegal ordinance.
Okay, by motion, I made the motion and it stands. Is there a second? Okay, it fails for lack of a second.
I'd just like to think about it a little bit more.
What?
I'd like to think about it a little bit more.
I would like
Because
to,
I'm strongly considering
Right.
seconding. I need to think about it a little bit more. I'm just saying, maybe at the end of the meeting, we'll discuss it again. Let me wrap my head around it a little bit more.
All right.
would you like to continue this item? Are you more comfortable with asking for a continuance of this item?
No, I want to continue the meeting. And
Guy?
Let's
Okay.
continue the meeting, I'll bring it
Okay.
up later.
Our intent to help, to cooperate, to work with them
Yes.
and to do all that?
Yes,
Okay.
We'll draft that.
okay.
Would you like to have it brought back and then vote on it next time, or would you like to vote on it now and then we'll draft it?
I think we can vote on it now, right? All right, I'll make the motion to support both, does the school board call them resolutions? They just provided them,
Correct.
resolutions H1 and H12. And I provided a copy of them to you from Maritere Rojas' office. And just, you know, supporting them and letting them know that we're here to cooperate however we can to facilitate the process.
Second?
A second it.
Will you call the roll, please?
Vice Mayor Keon,
Yes.
Commissioner Mena,
Yes.
Commissioner Casada. Yes. Mayor Valdez Foley.
Yes. And there's a motion on the floor that I made, which needs a second, and that is to prohibit the sale of assault rifles, automatic, rifles in the city of Coral Gables.
And let me ask you a question, we talked a little bit about it a few moments ago. This would require an ordinance.
It would. There is no ordinance before you. You would have to direct my office to draft an ordinance.
Right. Listen, here's the issue I'm having, and I expressed it earlier. I would love to be able to ban the sale of these guns in the city of Coral Gables, but again, we're looking at a Florida statute which says that that is illegal for us to do. You know, we're elected officials in a democratic country where the rule of law matters. And if we're just gonna look at a law passed by the Florida, we may not like it, but preemption is a core principle of our democracy.
Do you think there's a possibility that that state statute is illegal or unconstitutional?
I think that those who have tested that have failed so far.
I think that
That's the
case,
issue.
I had an opportunity to look at it now, and can be distinguished.
Well, that's where I was gonna go next is,
And-
should we have Miriam and her office give us a real breakdown of how those cases have proceeded and what the findings have been and if there's a path forward?
And
Because
could we
right now, we're doing
challenge-
that. We don't have an ordinance in front of us, actually. We don't have that information. All we have is a law which says we can't do this.
Yeah, but we have a law that says that we can't do this, and assuming that that law is there and that we can't look around it, I would like to send a message that that law is wrong and that the city of Coral Gables stands up for our kids and for kids in our Broward schools and in other Florida schools which have been assassinated by these weapons, and that somebody should do something, and I'm willing to be that person, and hopefully the city of Coral Gables will be that city that will express itself in opposition to that statute. Our legislators, especially the legislators from Coral Gables, the Republican legislators, voted 18-1, but 18-0 in the House committee against doing something to ban these weapons. And that is cowardly, that is wrong.
I agree with you. I agree with you that it is.
I'd like to note, sir, that you've said previously that we had different zoning regulations some years ago. The Florida statute does have an exemption for zoning ordinance that encompass firearms businesses along with other businesses. You could certainly direct us to look, and now that we're rewriting our zoning code, into how to better address that in a way that complies with this statute. That is certainly something that's.
So are you
That's
what
the
about-
zoning ordinance that
What
says
about what
that
he
we
said?
ban it.
What about what you said earlier, and I don't know if that's exactly what you were referring to, the 2008 law
That's
that we had?
exactly it.
Because again, is that another way forward on this? If there was a
Yes.
pre-existing rule that we could rely on prior to the passing of the 2011 Florida statute,
That was changed in our zoning code already, but the statute does allow for zoning regulations as long as we're not singling out gun shops. So if we regulate them similar to another type of, maybe more restrictive than just retail, which is what we're doing now, that is something that we could
Okay,
look at doing.
I insist, there's a motion of mine on the floor. Do I get a second?
Well, give us a second here. Give us a to discuss a little bit. I actually haven't heard Commissioner Keon's position on this, or have you stated?
On doing it, you know what it is, would I like to do it? Yes, I would like to do it, because I think that their stance is wrong. It's just wrong. But I don't, and if you can say, we'll do it so that, we at least voice our feelings on the issue, go ahead. But if we are challenged, or if we're sued, what do we just say? We don't want to talk about this.
It's much
what do you
more,
do?
the problem, Vice Mayor, is that it's much more than being challenged or sued. It could be removal from office, and if you were sued individually, which is what this says, I couldn't even defend you because we can't spend government dollars doing so.
So you would be sued, and you would have to go out, and you would have to, engage counsel and whatever to do all of this. The issue of being removed from office is the least of my concerns. I mean,
Right.
if you want to remove me from office for expressing my opinion on something,
On guns.
good, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Which
Remove me.
goes to my
Which
point
means me,
that
I don't care.
that can't be constitutional.
I don't think it can be either. So what I would like to do is, I would really like to direct Miriam to challenge the constitutionality of that preemption.
But the way you challenge that
The way you challenge it.
is by
Yeah.
bringing an ordinance that's contrary to that.
You can
That's
file
the
a
way
deck
to challenge
action.
it. That's what I'm trying to do.
Okay, so you do an ordinance that's contrary to it, and how do you defend it? If you can't
Right, you
use
can't.
public funds for it,
Can you in a constitutional?
they can shut you down. I'm not an attorney, so
You're-
I'm
right,
asking you,
right,
tell
but-
me.
But we're here, we're
Tell
asking.
me.
Right, well, no, that is not the only way. What I would ask is for you to let us research, draft a complaint, as we've done in the past, bring that complaint to you. We can even draft a sample ordinance of what it would look like and attach it to the complaint. And then us bring the lawsuit, if I'm directed by majority of
Okay,
this
so
commission.
let me give you my 2 cents on this. And again, I probably should have thought about this more last night. I've had some time to think about it now. And
Can I say one last thing before
no,
you
you
say?
can, no,
one
you
last
cannot.
thing, one
You
last thing.
asked me, and I said
one
no.
last thing. She also said earlier, and we're glossing over this,
Yeah.
Yes, that she can't
that
sign
she
it.
will not sign it.
Okay, that's fine.
So what do you do when that happens?
Got it.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you're protected.
Those are facts already in evidence. So here are my thoughts on this. I'm speaking to you, Commissioner Mena, and I'm speaking to you, Commissioner Keon.
Not to me?
No, I'm not speaking to you. So the problem, as I see it right now, is what the mayor mentioned a few minutes ago, that the legislature, again today, shot something down that could have helped move forward resolving the
Was it an
problem.
appropriation committee?
How's
It was
appropriation?
another act by the legislature that didn't result in any significant change. Now, I'm not against guns by no means of the imagination. I'm not.
Assault.
Now, the biggest problem I see here is the fact that these students, I mean, it was a massacre. 17 lives
Kids.
killed,
Right.
kids, and 15 injured. It could have been another 15 deaths. It's happened over and over again, and there's no substantial change at any level. People talk about the bump stocks or a few other different things which aren't going to the root of the problem. Now look, we haven't been elected at the state level, we haven't been elected at the federal level, but we have an obligation to do what we can as advocates for our community, to do everything we can, to protect our city. When you have conversations with the police department, when you have conversations with their staff of what can and cannot be done, there's only so much that we can really do. I feel like my role at this point is to do everything we can to really try to force the legislature at the state level, because when it comes down to it, we are lobbyists for our city at the state level.
Yes.
At the federal level, at the county level. There are many times that we speak to the county commission and the county mayor to try to convince them of something that's going to benefit our community. We've all done it in one way or another. Days when we go up to Tallahassee and we meet with the state legislature to try to convince them to send additional funding to us, whether it's related to sea level rise or whatever other issue it may be. This is what I really think this is one of those situations. Now, I think timing is very important when it comes to this. We've seen these children from Parkland in Tallahassee. We've seen them in DC. They've been all over the news. And the ones that are leading are the children here. And it's unfortunate that there's so much press on this. There's so much pressure on the legislature, and nothing has happened yet. Doesn't mean nothing can't happen.
Well, I got.
But if there is, let me finish up here, because I'm speaking to you, Commissioner.
I'm hearing.
What I think is very important is that the pressure, that they're feeling it from all angles. And I commend the mayor for bringing this up. And I think you see where I'm going on this. Yes, we could be removed from office for voting for this. Yes, we could be subject to a $5,000 fine. But inaction at this time, I think it's incumbent on us. I feel that it's incumbent on me to do what we can to continue to apply pressure. And I got to tell you, with the strong stance we've taken with FPL, I can guarantee you they're going to lobby the governor to remove us if we vote for it. And you know something? If we are removed from office for promoting something that's going to help the legislature make a positive change in this regard,
With our children.
then it'd be worth it.
That's the best thing that could happen.
That's the best that can happen.
Actually,
However, so the
right.
question in your mind,
Right.
Commissioner Mena and Commissioner Keon, should not be, well, whether it's legal or not. No, we know that there's a strong possibility, a high likelihood that we could be removed from office for doing this. Hold on.
Go ahead.
I don't want you thinking, I want you listening. High possibility, but the question is this going to encourage other cities to follow suit so that Miami-Dade County or the state of Florida, the individuals closest to the residents, the elected officials in the municipalities like ourselves, send a strong message, hey, look, if you're not going to make a change, we are willing to stand up for our communities as a whole and put our own jobs on the line. And you know something, this is more important than us keeping our jobs, to send the message, look, maybe the answer isn't fully banning assault rifles, but the answer is that the legislature knows that we are serious, and the communities, the people closest to the closest to the residents feel this strongly about it. And if this is going to encourage one other city, two other cities, the Dade League of Cities, the Broward League
Many
of Cities, you telling me the city of Parkland isn't going to do this? You telling me Broward County isn't going to do this?
South Miami's going to do it.
You know, let's give them, let's give them the playbook of how to do it. And what happens if we get removed? What do you think the public backlash could be? Do you think it's going to help those kids achieve their goal of making schools safer? Can we possibly be, you know, one cog, one domino in the process to improve the safety of kids all throughout Florida? And I think the answer is yes, or even the mere possibility. So that's why I'm going to second the mayor's motion.
Thank you very much.
And
And
I
that
will
is
tell you-
exactly,
I will tell you now, as you were talking, I got this email from our lobbyist that said, we're really working hard on this. I think the best we're going to do is get limit H-21 with a 3-day cooling off period.
it's
Okay,
been
so
moved and
that's the best we
seconded,
can
and I,
do?
yeah. That's the best,
If that's the
precisely,
best, that's the best we can do?
precisely. Thank you very, very much, Commissioner, and the point is, let's send a message that this is unacceptable. I know that it's unenforceable, but let's send a message. You have to take risks, and you have to take risks for kids. You saw the two students here, and I bet the Coral Gables High, the people that have spoken here today, Mr. Thompson, Mr. Gomez, the community says, let's do something, and it behooves us to do something, and I thank you for your second.
Yeah, listen, we bifurcated this discussion a bit because we tabled it for however long, an hour or whatever it was. So, again, we all agree on the proposed ban. Or at least I think you do as well, obviously, on the actual substance of it. So, again, nobody's leading on this. That's clear. Nobody's leading on this. The kids are the ones leading on this, and it's outrageous. Everybody's feeling that right now.
And it's incumbent on us to follow.
Absolutely, absolutely. But let's do it in a way that is the most effective way.
This is.
I understand.
Finish your thought.
Let's do it in the way that's the most effective way. We have not even seen a draft ordinance. We have not had our city attorney advise us on the prior legal decisions on this exact issue. So let's do it intelligently. That's all what I'm asking for, is let's go about it the right way. Let's not just pass, we're actually not even passing a ban today if we vote on it, because there is no ordinance in front of us.
We are, okay, I would like
Directing her.
direct the city attorney to draft an ordinance banning the sale of semi-automatic, of assault rifles in the city of Coral Gables.
And to brief us on the
No,
prior
no,
legal
but no,
decisions on this topic.
we passed the resolution, I mean, the ordinance today on first reading, and.
Can't do that.
Why not?
So
Because
the ordinance
there's
has
no
not,
ordinance.
there's been no notice, there's no ordinance, it has not been advertised. The most you
Right.
could do today is order me to draft an ordinance and bring it to you for first reading at the next meeting.
Correct.
Well, or could we have a meeting prior to the next commission meeting, as long as you have 10 days?
Yes, you could
So we could
notice a
call a
meeting.
special
A
meeting.
special meeting?
A special meeting and invite the public to attend. A special meeting. Because so we
Okay,
don't have to
I,
wait 2 weeks. We could wait, we need 10 days to notice. Is that right?
Only if it's the last time, so only if it was for
Okay,
second.
you tell
as
me
long
that
as
we
it's on
can't do
the
it.
agenda.
There's a motion
Mayor,
on the
you're not
floor
here.
that has been seconded. Will you call the roll, please?
The motion is to.
The motion, no, the motion is to pass an ordinance today. She tells you we can't do it.
Where's the ordinance?
I want to do it. I want to do it.
But there's no ordinance.
Hold on, hold on, there's a question for the city attorney. Are you telling me it is impossible, under our rules of procedure, to bring an oral ordinance that cannot be voted on? Is that your opinion?
What would the ordinance, if you want to read an ordinance into the record
The
of what it
ordinance
would
says that we
say?
have considered this, and we
Is-
are banning the sale of
That's the
semi-automatic
ordinance?
weapons
That's
and
what-
assault rifles in the city of Coral Gables.
If that's the ordinance and what the ordinance would say, I still think we have a notice issue. It was not on the agenda. We should not be voting on something that was not on the agenda. The public hasn't had an opportunity to come here and be
Okay,
heard.
will you call the
If
roll,
despite
please?
that advice, you'd like us to draft that and bring us back for
And I
second
want you to
reading?
draft it and bring it back, but I want to pass this today. Because it sends a message, it'll be in the papers, the students will be marching for us, it'll send a message to our legislators that they better get off their behinds and listen to the people and listen to the city of Coral Gables.
We will draft literally what the mayor has just said as an ordinance. We will bring it for second reading at the next meeting with the 10-day required notice.
Okay.
With, again, my caveat that one, it's illegal, and that two, there was not proper notice for this
Will you
meeting.
call the roll, please?
Commissioner Mena,
Yes.
Commissioner Casada,
Yes.
Mayor Valdez-Wally,
Yes.
Vice
What
Mayor
about-
Keon.
Yes.
Yes,
I would,
thank you very, very much.
you're welcome.
Miriam,
I-
can-
I would-
Miriam, to clarify,
Yes.
it would not be effective until there's a second reading and approval at second reading?
Correct. And even then, I would have to advise the city manager not to enforce the ordinance.
And we
as
understand that.
It
Yeah,
could
we
cost the
understand
jobs
that.
of everybody in
We
the city.
understand that, but the message has been sent.
Can you also please research and provide us with a memorandum that highlights prior decisions from the different courts of appeal around the state that have dealt with this exact issue already and what the basis was for each?
And we have a First Amendment attorney that we've used in the past.
Amy,
Abby Corbett?
Abby Corbett. I mean, it's your selection who you want to use. I know we've used her in the past, but if you could have an outside counsel that specializes in that,
Oh, certainly.
review that.
I'd like to recognize Commissioner Casala Senior, sitting in the audience, came to visit us.
And Commissioner Mena Senior.
That's right.
Are we asking for a special meeting?
no, it will just come on the
Or it'll
regular
come on the
meeting.
20th of March?
I would like to pass a resolution today, a resolution expressing the city commission's overwhelming disappointment with the Florida legislature's unwillingness to responsibly and courageously act in the best interest and safety of Florida's residents, a state that now has the highest number of fatalities associated with mass shootings with automatic weapons by failing to pass legislation banning assault weapons, and holding the Florida legislature responsible for any future tragedies associated with automatic weapons in the state due to their failure to act.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Roll.
Call the roll.
Call the roll?
Vice Mayor Keon,
Yes.
Commissioner Mena,
Yes.
Commissioner Casada,
Yes.
Mayor Valdez-Wally.
Yes. All right, anything else to come before the meeting? Meeting is adjourned.